So, as you guys might know, Kamala Harris is doing her book tour right now, where she's going around talking about this was like 107 days to campaign, promoting it, trying to sell as many copies as possible, basically grifting off the loss of her election. And she continues, as more information of the book comes out, to blame more and more people for the election loss instead of blaming herself. So in this video, the latest two to be blamed are Andrew Tate and Myron Gaines for why she lost. So I'm going to go over that, what they said in response, and then I'm going to go over every single person she has blamed so far leading up to this point, rather than just accepting that she ran a horrible campaign. So if this is content you like, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below. We're going to dive right into this. So this is an excerpt from her book. So it says, this is from a news article. The bomb's an excerpt. So the news article says Kamala Harris has blamed the influence of online manosphere figures for losing young male voters in 2024 presidential election. In her new political memoir, 107 Days, published this week, the former vice president admits that she was devastated to learn that she lost some ground with male voters under 30. Pundits speak about the bro vote, the frat boy flank. She writes, I don't think of them in those reductive terms. Instead, I think about these young voters coming out of age during COVID, unnaturally isolated, their lives lonely, when they should have been at their most social. You know what's funny about that? She's talking about isolation. The Democrats want the isolation to last longer, and they're blaming on the isolation. You're a part of that. The 60-year-old argued that the pandemic created a vacuum in which young men turned to online influencers for connection and guidance. At the very moment their world should have been widening, it had contracted. She writes, for some, the voices that filled the void belong to Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, and others who grab attention with get-rich or fitness content, then deliver arguments that feminism is damaging to masculinity and women need to know their place. So she's blaming them for having this message. But in reality, if you actually had a message that was positive to young men and you actually tried to be positive for young men, you wouldn't have had to worry about this. See, this is a thing that gets me when it comes to like censorship and stuff, because Myron's been censored, I think, off YouTube. Andrew Tate, for a while, I think was censored off like everything. I don't think he still is. I could be wrong there. He was even arrested at one point, and I think there's charges are still pending. I don't 100% know. What gets me about the censorship stuff is that if you just have a better message, you wouldn't have to worry about this stuff. If you truly knew what's best for like young men and they believed your message, you wouldn't have to worry about other people, taking the attention, filling the void. The void was there because your administration didn't have anything to fill there. So these people sought somewhere else. This is on you. You can't blame other people. And personally, for me, I don't agree with a lot of what Myron Gaines and Andrew Tate say. I think I don't think feminism is good. I think feminism has been a bad thing, but I don't go as far as they do. Like they go with the route of like women shouldn't vote. I think personally, as long as you pay taxes, you should be able to vote. If you are leech off welfare, you shouldn't. So I don't go as far as these people do, but I do believe they should be able to say what they want to say. I do believe in freedom of speech, and I don't think it's fair to blame them for your election loss. You should be able to counter, as a presidential candidate, anything they would say. Like, this is one thing Trump is pretty good at. People will say things to him, and he fires back really quick. He fires back in a really aggressive way, and he's really good at just giving people like hope, a chance, with the exception of like the crazy blue hair people. But there's a reason he won the election, right? He's really good at communicating, where she hid the whole presidency, was the least popular president ever, and then comes up and is like, I don't know why people don't like me. So let me get to the response. So this is Andrew Tate's first response.
So Kamala Harris just admitted in her new book that I was one of the reasons she lost. And I've been saying for a very long time that the reason the liberals and the Democrats have been trying to put me in jail is because I can affect elections. And now Kamala's saying, yes, Andrew wasn't in jail, so he's one of the reasons why I lost the election. Read her book. She says it herself. Gotcha, bitch.
So here's Myron Gaines also responding to this.
This is page 107 or 176. It was devastating to learn that after the election that I lost some ground with voters under 30, especially young men. Pundits speak about the brovo, the frat boy flank. I don't think of them in those reductive terms. Instead, I think about these young voters coming out of age during COVID, unnaturally isolated, their lives lonely when they should have been at their most social. At the very moment their world should have been widening, it had contracted. For some, the voices that filled the void belong to Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, and others who grab attention with get-rich or fitness content, then deliver arguments that feminism is damaging to masculinity and women need to know their place. Wow. Boys, we fucking did it, man. We fucking did it, boys.
So obviously he's happy getting that shout out. They think, they think of it as a compliment that they are part of the reason that Kamala Harris lost. So what I want to pull up here. So I asked Rock, because this is not the first person she has blamed for her election loss. This is a pattern because she can't accept blame for herself. So she's got to blame other people. So let's look at everyone she's blamed since the election. So first was Joe Biden. Harris described Biden's late withdrawal from the race on July 21st, 2024, when he retired, stepped down, as reckless, leaving her with only 107 days to campaign against a prepared Trump. She argued this insufficient time was probably one of the biggest factors in her loss, as it prevented her from building a full campaign infrastructure. She also noted her loyalty to Biden hindered her ability to differentiate herself, which voters craved. Okay, let's talk about this. You had insufficient time to prepare for being president. You are the vice president. Your whole job is to be prepared to be president. That's the whole point. You're there. You don't even do much else besides just exist in case something happens to the president. And you're going to sit here and say you didn't have insufficient time? People know who you are. People just need to know what your views are. And the thing is with Kamala, she was so scared to skate away from the whole Biden administration because she was a part of that. So if she goes against something Biden did, then it's like, why didn't you have more of a say in that? Why didn't you speak up then versus now? And then if she goes along with what Biden did, she's bad because Joe Biden didn't have a good presidency like the liberal media would like you to think he did. His presidency was awful. And we're learning more and more about the corruption from his presidency every single day. And what I want to pull up too, I meant to have this up already, is if you look at her favorability rating in polling, this really shows that it actually hurt her that he dropped out when he did. Let me see what you guys can see. Okay. So if you look here, so all this down here in the black, this is her favorability rating leading up to the presidency. So this is when she was VP. It was really horrible, down to what, 35% here in February 2024. All the way down to 38 around July. So July 21st is when he announced he was stepping off, right? Her favorability rating is at 38%. Okay, that's really low. She announces she's the president candidate. So then she gets this honeymoon phase where she's flying up for absolutely no reason at all. She's actually more favorable than unfavorable in September. So this is a month and a half before the election. So then what happens? All of August, she didn't do any interviews. She didn't do any debates, nothing like that, right? So then she gets up here and then she starts doing interviews. And these aren't just like, easy interview, aren't hard interviews, easy interviews. These are like with Call Her Daddy, MSNBC, all these scripted interviews, right? So even in the scripted interviews, her favorability rating starts going down. And then she avoids Joe Rogan, so that it goes down more. She did a Fox News interview, which is a disaster. It's only like 10 minutes long. So the more she opened her mouth and talked about her views, the least popular she became. So honestly, if Joe Biden dropped out like a week before the election, that would have been the best bet for her. That would have given her the win because nobody would have been able to hear her talk. She probably would have won the election, honestly. If it was a week or two before the election and she had no time to interview or debate or anything, she would have probably won. But she's going to sit here and blame the manosphere and Joe Biden. So what else did she blame? Biden's staff and Democratic leadership. In her book, so this is all coming from her book. In her book, Harris criticizes Biden's inner circle for poor strategic advice and for not preparing the party for a smoother transition. She extends blame to other top Democrats for inadequate support during her sprint, including failures in surrogate operations and fundraising execution despite raising $1.5 billion. That's the thing. They were definitely not short on money. They raised 3 times more money than the Trump administration did. All the rich people in our country, the left and the media will say that Trump helps the rich. The rich people wanted Kamala Harris as president, and the donor money shows that. And they still couldn't get it done because at the end of the day, authenticity is more important to the American people than how much money you spend on a campaign, how many signs you see out there, how many people, influencers you hear speaking of it. We need to see you in person. You can pay all the hairy assistants you want to spread your message, but if we don't see you in person, we're not going to vote for you. That's how that works. So she's not preparing the party for a smooth transition. So a lot of the conspiracies among this transition was that the Biden didn't want to step down and that someone forged that letter and forged his signature on Twitter that randomly appeared that one day when he went into hiding for a week. Because what's weird too is the day before that, he was doing an interview with some radio show, I think. And he said the only way he would step down or step aside is if he had some kind of medical emergency. And then 5 hours later, he tests positive for COVID. Weird, right? And then the next day or the day after, he steps down through a Twitter message. And then he's not seen for a week. The president of the United States is not seen for a week. And then it's announced Kamala Harris is going to take over. The whole thing was just so shady. And it's a lot of inside conspiracies. A lot of people say they didn't agree with Biden being forced out. It's why they didn't help Kamala. There's a lot of beef between Jill Biden and Kamala Harris. So a lot of things going on. What else should he blame? Voters' racism and sexism, of course. Harris has implied that bias against her as a black and female candidate played a role, echoing post-election comments where she highlighted racially tinged criticisms about her intelligence and competence. She has connected this to broader voter delusionment, but framed it as a barrier to her historic bid. So she's saying that people question her intelligence and competency because she's black. No, it's because you're an idiot. Anytime she speaks, even now, she just did an interview with, who was it? Was it Colbert or one of those late night talk show hosts? I think she did an interview for. And it looks like she literally has the hamster on the wheel in the head, trying to come up with the next thing. It's like that Michael Scott meme where he's like, oh, I just keep talking and talking. I don't know what's going to come out next. That's what she sounds like anytime she speaks. She's just not good at speaking. She's not good at stuff like that. It's okay to say that. There's a lot of politicians who suck at speaking. It has nothing to do with because you're black. Obama's probably one of the best speakers of our whole generation. He's black. And that's another thing that makes sense too. She's saying racism played a role. Obama was elected 2 times because white people voted for him. You can't win an election without the white vote. White people outnumber every other race. So to apply that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If you want to argue the female candidate thing, I'm not going to deny there probably are men that will never vote for a female candidate. I'm not going to say that's false. It's probably true. But if you play the other side, there are plenty of people that vote for her just because she's a female candidate. Because we heard all the time, and even when Hillary was running, if you don't vote for Hillary, if you don't vote for Kamala, you're sexist automatically. Because you're not voting for the woman candidate. It's nothing to do with her views. You just have to vote for her because she's a woman. And so, it works both ways. You can't just say, oh, one way and not the other. Donald Trump's rhetoric and media strategy. Harris blames Trump's incendiary comments, meandering speeches, and dominance in media escalation, calling her derogatory names like low IQ and crazy Kamala for swaying voters through misinformation. She argued her campaign's late pivot to highlighting this backfired by not resonating enough. It's funny how they say that Trump's rhetoric, all they talk about is Trump's rhetoric, but when they do it the other way around, it's okay. All her and Biden did that whole year is say Trump is a threat to democracy, over and over again. Said he's a Nazi, says he's Hitler, all these different things. Those are okay. But if you call someone low IQ or crazy, that's drawing the line. That is too far. That makes no sense at all. They can push all this crazy rhetoric they want on the conservatives, but once it's fired back on them, even at 1%, they act like the victims. Then Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines. Broader Democratic Party failures, e.g. Bernie Sanders, Gavin Newsom, and Pete Buttigieg. Harris's book faults progressive and moderate Democrats alike for not aligning enough. Sanders for ideological rifts, Newsom for uneven California support, and Buttigieg for being excluded as VP due to perceived risks, but still not aiding outreach. She portrays the party as divided and underinvested in battleground states. And it's funny she said underinvested because they raised 3 times more money. That's her own campaign's fault. That's her campaign doing that. Not Gavin Newsom, not Bernie, not Pete Buttigieg. As much as I would love to blame them for everything. And it's funny too, because it came out that she didn't pick Pete Buttigieg because he was gay. And then she tried to like reframe it that wasn't the case. Pete Buttigieg would have been a way better VP than Tim Walz. 100%. Like there's literally a story that came out a couple months ago that she was time between Tim Walz, Josh Shapiro, and then the senator from Mark Kelly from Arizona. And she saw Tim Walz pick up a Diet Mountain Dew. And that was a deciding factor because she thought that would help with the rural vote. First off, if you see a presidential candidate drink a soda and you're like, I want to vote for him because I relate to him, you don't deserve to be able to vote in this country at all. That is the lowest IQ thing possible. So if that's true, the way she did that, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. There's never, like, I can't imagine someone like, oh, Trump likes Diet Coke, so I'm going to vote for him because I like Diet Coke. Like, are you serious right now? No. And that's why she did that. And it just shows how dumb she thinks rural people are, that would have worked. So Pete Buttigieg, you know, I'm not a fan of his, but he is more moderate in a lot of ways, you know, compared to Tim Walz and Gavin Newsom. And he is a very good speaker, and he's not really afraid to go in other spaces. Like he's going on Andrew Schultz podcast. A lot of liberals won't do that. He goes on Fox News. So he would have been a better choice for them personally. I personally think so. Economic and incumbent pressures inherited from the Biden era. While not blaming individuals directly, Harris pointed to inflation, high costs, and anti-incumbent sentiment as overwhelming factors she couldn't overcome in a short window, tying back to administration and popularity. Yeah, your administration was garbage, and you literally came out, and that's the thing. If you disagreed with this stuff, you should have just came out and said that. We know as VP, you don't have a lot to say. If you were just like, Biden did this, I wouldn't have done that. I would have done this differently. When you know Biden's administration is so unpopular, you probably would have gotten votes. But when you come out and someone asks you, would you have done anything differently? And you go, no, I wouldn't have. I would have done everything the exact same. That's on you. You should not have said that. And that was stupid on you. And she can blame everyone else for her problems. But at the end of the day, this is all on her. And she is the one person she will not blame. And honestly, I don't see her running for president again in 2028. I honestly hope she does because she'll probably be really popular at first. Because she's the former VP, and then the first presidential Democratic primary will happen, and then she'll just tank because she has to speak. And people might not like this. Gavin Newsom is a good debater. I don't like him. He's a good debater. Pete Buttigieg is a good speaker. Don't like him, but he is. She's not going to be able to handle people like that in her own party. She won't get out of the primary. So that's why I think she probably won't run. I think she'll coast off making probably $10 million off this book and then just, you know, be like kind of like Hillary and Obama where they pop in and out some places. Let me know what you guys think about Kamala Harris blaming everyone else for her book instead of herself. I think it's funny how she blames like Myron Gaines and Andrew Tate. But in reality, if she just had a good idea for young men, they wouldn't go those routes. Like I said, Andrew Tate and Myron Gaines go too far in a lot of things. But there's a reason young men are seeking guidance from stronger masculine figures. And that's because people on the left have demonized masculinity for so long, you know? And there is such thing as like healthy masculinity. Like you should want to provide for your family. There's nothing wrong if you want your wife to be a stay-at-home wife and you do like the typical stereotypical roles. Like in my house, like my fiance typically does the laundry. She does more of the cleaning. I do more of the outside stuff, you know, like the cars and the lawn and, you know, stuff like that. It's pretty typical, you know, that and a lot of families are happier in those situations. And people on the left and the feminists think that's like oppressive. So yeah, you're never going to win that battle. And I think the younger generation is becoming more and more conservative. I think the Democrats are in trouble in 2028. Personally, I think unless Trump's administration messes up really hard, they're going to be in trouble. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'll catch you next time.